All I hope you see is possibilities of an essential heart, of an essential heart. So this channel is really meant to create a loving and warming and motherhood and beautiful environment, and basically non-judgmental. I want to create a society of women that empower each other, that lift each other up, that help each other instead of putting each other down for their decisions. And this brings me to story number 2. So, right now, I am pregnant with my second child. It has been a roller coaster so far. It's been really hard, actually. It's been really tough. I am very in tune with my body, and I instantly knew I was pregnant at 5 weeks. And I told my husband, I was like, I think I'm pregnant. And I did a test, and it was positive. And then I went to the doctor like a week later, and they got a positive test there as well. So it had been confirmed. And then the next day, I went to the hospital with abdominal pain on my right side. They did a ton of tests, ultrasounds, internal exams, CAT scans, everything, the works. And they couldn't find anything wrong with me. I told the doctor, I said, there's got to be something wrong with me. I can't have missed work. I told the doctor, I'm like, there's got to be something wrong with me. I am not going to get up at 1 a.m. in the morning, tell my husband I have sharpshooting pain and I need to go to the hospital. Because, like, my first birth, I will elect not to go. If I tell somebody that I need to go to the hospital, they know it's serious. Because I don't want to go to the hospital if I don't have to. So I'm there. My daughter and my husband I told them to go home because they needed sleep because they had to go to work and daycare the next day. And I told them to go home, and they told me that I had a bladder infection because I kept having him test all my results again. They're like, oh, you have a bladder infection. And he said it lackadaisical, like, oh, that's what it was. Like, because he kept doing tests. He kept saying it was nothing. And I kept asking him to do more tests. I'm like, there's something wrong with me. They checked, and I told them I was pregnant, and I just found out the day before. And they checked, and they said that the baby was fine, that they could hear, or like they could hear heartbeat, or they could see something that was a state of being, because it was such a short. I was only 6 weeks, so it wasn't like they could really detect. But they said that they did see something in there on the ultrasound, so everything was fine. So 2 weeks later, I start bleeding. I'm like about 8 weeks along. I start bleeding at work, and I panic. I have no idea what to do. And my boss tells me to go to the hospital. It didn't register to me. She's like, I was bleeding a lot, actually. And same exact pain on my right side, sharpshooting pain. Super, super painful. Basically, they thought it was my appendix the first time, and they kept ruling it all out, and they said nothing was wrong with me, and they were like, oh, it's a bladder infection. Here, take some antibiotics. So I took all the antibiotics, I did everything that they said, and then I started bleeding. So then I was starting to, oh my God, do I have another infection? But it wouldn't have caused bleeding, but it was the same exact pain. So I went in to a different hospital while I was at work, and I left work and I went to a different hospital, and they brought me into the ER. They did the same tests. They did the ultrasound, they did the internal ultrasound, they did all the different exams that they could do, blood work and everything. And I'm sitting there waiting for bad news because I'm like, something is wrong here. Like, I am very in tune with my body, and I could tell that something was not right. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew something was not right. They did an ultrasound, and they saw the baby and everything, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They checked my appendix again, and Then the doctor comes in maybe like an hour after the ultrasounds and all the tests had been done. She goes, "Have you used fertility drugs?" And I go, "No." She goes, "You have a tubular pregnancy and you have a uterine pregnancy, which means that one of the babies is ectopic." So I was pregnant with twins, and I had one baby in the tube and one baby in the uterus. So that pain that I was feeling the 2 weeks prior and now was the tubular pregnancy growing, and the baby was growing in there, and it was not a viable space for it. I named him Sawyer Ty for Born of the Stars, and it was my great grandfather's name. And even though I was not sure, because it was so early in my pregnancy, I wasn't sure if it was a boy or a girl, but I had a feeling it was a boy. And I named him Sawyer because I like the idea that my great grandfather, maybe he watching over him. And it was very devastating because everything happened so fast. I went to the hospital at 11 and I was in surgery by 6. And so it was so quick and scary. And it was my first surgery that I ever had. And they had to make incisions in my stomach, and it was so scary. And they didn't know if the other pregnancy would survive. That was the risk. Because if I didn't have the surgery, then it could rupture and then I could die, possibly. Or if I did have the surgery, then you have to weigh the consequences. I was so scared. But I realized that being a mother is about sacrifice. When you're a mom, you have to sacrifice. It's the only way, I feel like, to be a mom. Yeah, you sacrifice your body to grow the child. You sacrifice your breast to feed the child. You sacrifice your mental sleep for a child. And in a way, it's not sacrifice to me isn't a bad word. Sacrifice is motherhood. You give up everything for your children. That's how I feel. And from what I learned from my first child's birth, my daughter's birth, her name is Abby, and from what I learned from that is, in that moment, I didn't sacrifice. I didn't feel like I sacrificed for her because I wanted her to be born naturally and not have a cesarean and not have an epidural. And, I didn't sacrifice for her. But I know now that, maybe I did. Maybe my sacrifice was having her backwards, and, it was hard. And the same with this pregnancy, because even though I think twins would have been very difficult, I still would have wanted them. I still would have wanted both of them. And I'm going to tell this second child when it's born that, you were supposed to be a twin. I'm going to tell them the truth. I'm going to be honest with them and open with them about that. And hopefully that will give comfort to them, because I want there to be no secrets in my family. I am about 15 weeks along now. Everything is going okay. I heard the baby's heartbeat yesterday at the midwife. I am going to a midwife place this time again. I'm in a different state than I was. I moved. And I am going to more of a clinical type of midwife practice. So they have the same type of environment, like the kindness of the midwives, and they have the same type of environment for the birthing suite's really homey, and they have the rocking chairs and the big bathtub so you can labor in the bathtub. It has jacuzzi, jets, which I think I'm going to be excited about. And they also have, but they have additional things, more clinical things. They have heat lamps, and they have heated towels, and it's like they have like it's a smaller environment, but they do have more midwives on staff, so they can rotate more and they can take on more women, which I think is really great. Teaching you anything you need to know. Giving you the important things you should have to grow. Save all the change I have in the world to send you to school. Choose natural things to nurture your body and soul. Show people kindness to teach you compassion and love. To be creative and brave so you can dream anything up. Giving you a light so you can find your way through the dark. When I'm not there to hold your hand, I hope you look up. All I hope you see is possibilities of an essential heart, of an essential